When the noise of the world softens, when the constant need to prove, to explain, to convince fades into silence, something sacred begins to unfold. Love does not announce its arrival. It doesn't enter with fireworks or dramatic gestures. It enters quietly, in the small pauses between heartbeats, in the space between one breath and the next. It arrives when the mind no longer tries to define what it feels, when one stops asking, what is this? And simply allows it to be. In stillness, love reveals itself not as an emotion, but as a presence. A man may meet many faces, hear many voices, and be moved by many words, but what truly stays with him is not spoken. It is sensed. It is the stillness that exists when he is near her, the peace that descends without effort. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the fullness of awareness. When two people sit together without needing to speak, when the silence feels alive instead of empty, when the body relaxes because it no longer feels the need to perform, that is where love begins to root itself. Words can imitate closeness, but stillness creates it. Stillness is where masks fall away. It strips away everything that was built to impress, to defend, to hide. In silence, the truth of a person is revealed. One cannot pretend to be calm if there is chaos inside. One cannot fake presence if the mind is somewhere else. Love that begins in words often fades with words. But love that begins in stillness grows quietly because it is nourished by authenticity. The heart does not need explanations to recognize peace. It feels safety in energy long before it understands reasons. Many people mistake intensity for depth. They believe love begins when the heart races, when the words are passionate, when there is excitement and thrill. But intensity is only movement. It burns fast and disappears quickly. Stillness is the opposite. It is slow, grounded, and eternal. When a man falls in love through stillness, it means he has found something that quiets his inner noise. He does not feel the need to chase, to win, or to prove. Instead, he feels the desire to remain. That is the nature of real love. It doesn't demand movement outward, it draws awareness inward. Stillness also teaches patience. In a world where connection is often measured by speed, how quickly someone replies, how fast feelings develop, stillness asks for something different. It invites waiting. It invites breathing. It invites learning to feel without rushing to label. Through stillness, love matures. It grows roots before it grows flowers. It becomes strong enough to weather distance, time, and misunderstanding. The man who loves from stillness does not seek constant validation because his love is not built on reaction but on awareness. When two people come together in stillness, they begin to see each other beyond personality. The need to impress fades. The mind stops calculating. There is only observation, the eyes meeting without tension, the breath synchronizing without plan. This is where intimacy truly lives. It is not born from words that promise forever, but from the peace that says, I am here. Stillness allows love to exist without ownership. There is no chase, no demand, no fear of loss, only the gentle recognition that something sacred is shared. Stillness is also the mirror of truth. When a man sits with himself in silence, he begins to see what love truly is, not an escape from loneliness, but a reflection of inner peace. Many people seek love to fill emptiness, to distract from themselves, to be rescued from silence. But real love does not fear silence, it thrives in it. Only when a person is comfortable in their own stillness can they meet another without need. Then, love becomes a meeting of two complete presences, not two incomplete halves. In stillness, words lose their power and energy becomes language. A glance, a breath, a gentle presence communicates more than any declaration. When a man feels safe in a woman's stillness, his heart opens not because she speaks of love, but because she embodies it. She doesn't demand attention, she radiates calm. She doesn't explain connection, she allows it to be felt. Her silence does not create distance, it creates invitation. And in that space, he recognizes something familiar, the peace he has always been searching for within himself. To love from stillness means to listen without trying to respond, to observe without trying to control. It means to experience another person not as an idea or an expectation, but as a presence. In this space, love loses its drama and gains its depth. It no longer seeks to impress, it seeks to understand. It no longer fears losing, it trusts the natural rhythm of what is meant to stay. Stillness also reveals the hidden layers of love, the quiet patience, the gentle awareness, the discipline of attention. It teaches that love is not an act of emotion, but an act of awareness. It is not about feeling something extraordinary, but about seeing the ordinary with extraordinary clarity. A simple moment, sitting together, walking in silence, breathing in unison, becomes sacred because both hearts are awake. In stillness, love transforms from a desire to possess into a devotion to witness. There is no need to hold tightly, because one understands that what is real cannot be taken away. The energy of stillness carries trust, trust in timing, trust in connection, trust in the unseen bond that silence nurtures. It is the soil in which genuine love takes root slowly, quietly, and deeply. Love begins in stillness, not in words, because stillness is where truth breathes. It is where the heart feels safe to open without defense, where two souls recognize each other beyond sound and story, where the invisible becomes known without needing to be explained. And only from this quiet foundation can love become something that endures through change, distance, and time. Affection is easy to display. It can be shown through gestures, words, and temporary emotion. But presence is different. Presence cannot be faked, borrowed, or performed. It is not something a person does, it is something they ever are. To be truly present is to bring the whole of oneself, body, mind, and spirit into a single moment, into a single connection. Presence does not seek to impress or to convince, it simply is. And when it is felt, it speaks more truth than any declaration of love ever could. Many people confuse affection with love. They believe love is proven through gifts, through constant words of reassurance, through displays of desire. But affection can exist without depth. It can be a habit, an act of politeness, even a performance. Presence, on the other hand, is rare. It requires awareness, silence, and stillness within. When someone is present with you, you feel it immediately. Their eyes are not wandering, their thoughts are not elsewhere, and their energy is not divided. They are not trying to control the moment or escape it. They are with you. That is what nourishes the heart more deeply than any touch or phrase. Presence cannot be learned through technique. It is cultivated through inner peace. The restless mind cannot be present because it is always moving, replaying the past, projecting the future, wondering what to say next. But when the mind quiets, the body follows, and love begins to communicate beyond language. To be present is to listen without preparing a response, to see without judgment, to feel without fear. It is to stand in another person's reality without trying to change it. This is the greatest form of love because it gives freedom instead of control and peace instead of pressure. Affection often seeks validation. It says, "Look at how much I care." It wants to be noticed, appreciated, reciprocated. But presence asks for nothing. It does not need acknowledgement because it is complete within itself. It simply observes, witnesses, and embraces what is before it. A man may hold a woman close with affection, but if his attention is elsewhere, his touch feels hollow. Another man may simply sit beside her in silence, fully attentive, and she feels seen in a way no words could express. It is not what one does that matters. It is the quality of awareness behind it. Presence is the purest mirror. When someone stands before you in full awareness, without expectation, you begin to see yourself more clearly. Their calm invites your own. Their steadiness silences your restlessness. You begin to relax because you are not being measured, not being compared, not being analyzed. Presence communicates, "You are safe here." That safety is the foundation upon which real love is built. Without presence, affection becomes noise, pleasant, perhaps, but fleeting. With presence, even silence becomes profound. Presence also teaches patience. When one is truly present, time slows down. There is no rush to reach the next moment, no anxiety about what is to come. You begin to understand that connection is not about the number of hours spent together, but about the depth of awareness shared in each moment. 10 minutes of real presence can nourish the heart more than years of habitual affection. It is not the length of love that matters, but its depth, and depth can only exist when presence is there. A man who loves through presence does not need to constantly prove his love. His energy, his attention, his calm already express it. When he listens with his whole being. When he speaks, his words carry weight because they rise from stillness, not from reaction. His affection becomes quiet yet powerful, not through repetition but through consistency. He does not chase intensity, because he understands that love does not live in drama, but in awareness. Presence also reveals truth in ways affection cannot. In affection, people can hide. They can smile while their hearts are closed. They can give while secretly expecting something in return. But presence exposes what is real. It shows when energy is divided, when the heart is absent, when emotion is forced. This is why many people fear presence. It requires honesty. It does not allow distraction. It brings everything to the surface. To be truly present with another is to be completely seen and to see completely. In presence, affection finds its true meaning. When one is fully aware, even the smallest gesture, a glance, a gentle word, a touch on the shoulder, becomes sacred. The energy behind it transforms it into something profound. Presence gives life to affection. Without presence, affection is like fragrance without a flower, temporary and disconnected from its source. With presence, even silence becomes an embrace. Presence also nurtures love beyond the physical. It connects spirit to spirit, not just body to body. When two people are present with each other, their energies harmonize, they begin to breathe in rhythm, to sense emotions without words. The boundaries of self soften, and what remains is connection in its purest form. Awareness meeting awareness. This is why love that is rooted in presence does not fade when distance arrives. Physical proximity may change, but awareness remains. The energy of presence travels beyond space, beyond time, beyond the spoken word. Presence requires surrender. It asks you to let go of the need to fix, to change, to perform. It asks you to simply be. That is why it is so rare. Because most people are afraid of being still. They fear what silence might reveal about themselves. But love that grows from presence requires that stillness. Only in stillness can one truly hear the heart of another. Only in presence can one truly see the soul that stands before them. To love with presence means to give the most valuable thing you have, your attention. In a world that constantly pulls the mind away, presence becomes the ultimate gift. It says, "You matter enough for me to stop everything and simply be here." No gesture, no word, no act of affection can equal that level of awareness. It is in this sacred space of full attention that hearts open, that trust is born, and that love becomes real. Presence speaks louder than affection because affection is temporary, but presence is timeless. Presence carries a vibration that the soul recognizes instantly, a calm that does not need to announce itself, a truth that does not need to be explained, a love that does not need to be proven. Desire may awaken him, but trust transforms him. Desire is the spark that lights quickly, but trust is the quiet fire that endures through night and storm. Desire reaches outward. It wants to touch, to taste, to possess, while trust reaches inward, asking him to surrender what he guards most, his vulnerability. A man can feel desire for many, but he can only love where his soul feels safe. Trust is the gate through which love enters. Without it, every feeling remains temporary, every emotion remains uncertain, and every connection becomes a performance rather than a truth. Desire is born of the senses. It lives in the eyes, the hands, the heartbeat. It thrives on mystery, on distance, on the unknown. It wants to experience, to consume, to explore. But trust belongs to the heart and to the spirit. It does not chase, it allows. It does not demand, it opens. When a man trusts, his love is no longer driven by need, but by presence. He no longer wants something from her. He wants to be something with her. Trust transforms love from hunger into harmony. A man may be moved by beauty, by touch, by attraction. But these are only invitations. They do not hold him. What holds him is the feeling that he can lay down his armor and not be judged for his scars. Every man carries unseen battles, unspoken fears, and quiet insecurities. The world often teaches him to suppress them, to appear strong even when he is breaking. But when he meets someone with whom he feels safe enough to be seen in his fragility, something profound happens. His heart begins to soften. That softness is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength, for it means he no longer hides. He begins to love not because he needs comfort, but because he finds peace in truth. Trust is built in silence, not in promises. It grows in the way someone listens without interruption, in the way their energy remains calm even when he withdraws, in the way their presence says, "You don't have to perform here." Thus, a man trusts when he senses that his being is accepted, not only his image. Desire fades when the thrill ends, but trust deepens with time, because it is rooted in something that cannot be seen, the unseen language of safety. Desire often begins with excitement, but excitement cannot carry love through difficulty. Trust us. When life becomes uncertain, when misunderstanding arises, when distance tests connection, it is trust that remains. A man will not fight for what he merely desires, but he will fight for what he trusts. because trust ties his heart, not his impulses. It gives meaning to his devotion and clarity to his purpose. He does not stay because he fears losing. He stays because he recognizes something sacred that he cannot find elsewhere. A space where he is not measured, not fixed, not improved, but simply witnessed. Desire creates movement, but trust creates depth. In desire, he reaches out to touch the world. In trust, he allows the world to touch him. This difference defines the quality of love. A man who only desires seeks possession. A man who trusts seeks connection. Desire feeds the ego while trust dissolves it. Desire says, I want you. Trust says, wife, I am safe with you. The first is passion without peace. The second is peace that carries passion quietly within it. Trust requires surrender, something that is often more frightening for a man than confrontation. To trust means to let go of control, to reveal what lies beneath the surface, to allow someone to enter the quiet spaces he protects. This act of surrender is the moment his love becomes real, because now love is not an escape from solitude, but an expression of it. He no longer fears being alone because his connection is built on honesty, not dependence. A man learns trust through consistency. He watches not for perfection, but for presence. He notices how someone responds when things go wrong, how they handle silence, how they behave when affection is not convenient. Words can comfort, but consistency builds safety. When he realizes that the same calm energy remains through confusion, the same kindness continues through distance, the same truth returns after misunderstanding, trust takes root. And from that root, love begins to grow naturally without force or demand. Desire may inspire pursuit, but trust invites stillness. It allows him to stop running, stop chasing, stop trying to prove his worth. In that stillness, his affection becomes devotion. His gestures become genuine, not strategic. His attention becomes grounded, not restless. Because he no longer acts from desire to gain, but from trust to give, the energy shifts from grasping to offering. Love begins to breathe without fear. Trust is also what awakens responsibility. When a man truly trusts, he becomes protective, not in a controlling way, but in a sacred one. He begins to value what he has been given. He realizes that love built on trust is delicate and that protecting it requires integrity. He watches his words, his actions, his energy. Not because he fears punishment, but because he honors the space that allows him to be his truest self. Desire often burns without awareness, but trust teaches mindfulness. It makes love not just emotional, but spiritual. Trust deepens communication. When trust exists, silence no longer feels like distance. The absence of words does not create fear, because presence fills the space. A man who trusts can rest in quiet with the one he loves, knowing that connection does not need constant confirmation. It is felt. It breathes. It moves between them invisibly. This kind of love does not fluctuate with emotion. It stays steady through every season because it was never built on desire's fire, but on trust's foundation. When a man loves through trust, he stops seeking intensity and begins valuing peace. He understands that real love is not about losing himself in another, but finding himself reflected there. He realizes that trust allows love to exist without control, without fear, without pretense. And through that realization, his love transforms from something that reacts to something that is, because desire may start the journey, but only trust teaches him how to stay. It is not that men do not feel deeply. They simply express differently. Where a woman often seeks understanding through communication, a man reveals himself through presence, tone, and movement. His love is not always carried in what he says, but in what his silence holds. His truth lives not in his explanations, but in the energy he radiates when he is near. A man's language is subtle. It flows through how he shows up, through the steadiness of his actions, through the energy he offers even when no words are spoken. From childhood, men are rarely taught to express emotion through language. They learn to act, to do, to build, to protect, not to explain. The result is that when they feel deeply, their body becomes their language. A woman may want to hear why he loves her, what he feels, where his heart stands, yet often his truth lies in something wordless. He will not always say, "Yes, I need you," but he will appear when you are silent. He may not whisper, "My care," but he will stay present when the world grows heavy. His consistency, his calm, his attention, these are his sentences. His gestures, his effort, his energy, these are his paragraphs. Men speak through energy because energy does not lie. Words can be shaped, performed, repeated, even faked. but energy exposes what is real. A man's energy will always reveal his intention before his mouth does. When he is genuine, his presence feels grounded, open, and still. When he is uncertain, his presence becomes fragmented, distracted, inconsistent. Energy is the compass by which love should be felt, not words, not promises, but the quiet vibration that a person carries into the room. Women who learn to read this language begin to understand what men rarely say aloud, that love, for them, is not spoken, it is embodied. A woman's world often moves through communication. She connects by speaking, by sharing, by weaving words into bridges of understanding. This is her strength, her way of softening distance. But a man's inner landscape is quieter. His emotions take time to form and even more time to express. When he speaks, it is often after reflection. When he acts, it is from decision, not impulse. His words may be few, but his energy, when stable, can hold more truth than hours of conversation. His love is not always expressed through poetic expression, but through the unshakable feeling of safety he brings into her space. When a man truly loves, his energy begins to shift. He becomes attentive not only to her presence but to her peace. He listens without needing to solve. He observes without judgment. His body language softens, his tone becomes calmer. These are subtle transformations, but they speak more clearly than affection spoken in haste. Energy does not rush. It communicates through vibration, through consistency, through attention to what cannot be seen. A man in love might not say, "You are my calm," but his stillness will tell her. His silence, when filled with care, becomes a form of protection. Women often listen for love through words because words are visible, measurable, comforting. They give form to feeling. But the challenge is that men often express emotion through invisible signals, timing, tone, gesture, rhythm. He may walk beside her in silence, yet the distance between their steps closes naturally. He may not text constantly, but his energy remains steady. He returns, he checks, he remembers small details. These are not random actions, they are his way of speaking. His loyalty, his consistency, his presence, they form a silent dialogue. When a man's energy is divided, his love feels unclear. When his energy is grounded, his love feels like peace. That is why women often feel confused, because they listen to words that sound right, but ignore energy that feels wrong. Words can seduce, but energy cannot pretend for long. The truth of a man is in how your body feels in his presence. Whether you tense or relax, whether you trust or question. His energy reveals his heart far before his confession does. To hear him clearly, one must feel him rather than analyze him. In the beginning, attraction often starts with words, conversation, laughter, exchange. But the deeper stages of connection require something beyond language. Energy begins to guide what the mind cannot explain. When you are with someone whose energy aligns with yours, silence feels comfortable. Time loses urgency. The connection deepens not because of what is said, but because of what is felt. A man who speaks through energy will show his care by how he remains. He will not over-explain, he will simply demonstrate through presence. That presence becomes his love letter, written without ink or sound. This difference between men and women is not imbalance, it is complement. A woman's words teach a man to open his inner world. A man's energy teaches a woman to trust what she feels more than what she hears. Together, they form a circle, communication through sound and through silence. When both listen, she to his energy, he to her words, love begins to move in harmony. The woman feels seen without asking, and the man feels understood without needing to translate his heart. A man's energy can carry tenderness more powerfully than affection expressed too quickly. He may show it in the way he listens when he could argue, in the way he stands beside her when she's silent, in the way he steadies her energy without trying to fix it. These are his forms of saying, "I love you," not through sentences, but through stability, not through charm, but through attention. To those who rush to hear love spoken, this may seem small, but to those who sense it, it is everything. Energy is the invisible thread that holds connection together when words fall short. It is how a man's soul communicates when his tongue cannot. His energy says what his upbringing never allowed him to voice. His fears, his hopes, his devotion. When he gives his steady energy to a woman, he gives her access to the part of him the world rarely sees. It is not loud, but it is real. It is not poetic, but it is sacred. Women often look for words, men speak through energy. When this truth is understood, misunderstanding softens. Words lose their pressure and energy becomes enough. Love no longer depends on expression but on presence, on the feeling that even in silence, the connection continues to speak. Beauty may draw his eyes, but the soul captures his silence. What holds him is not the shape of her face, not the rhythm of her walk, not the softness of her voice. It is the unseen harmony that his spirit feels when she enters his space. Beauty awakens curiosity, but soul awakens remembrance. It reminds him of something he cannot name, something ancient, something familiar, as if her energy speaks in a language his heart has always known. He may not understand it in words, but he feels it in peace. He feels it in the quiet way his breath slows when she is near, in the way his inner noise softens without effort. Beauty can inspire admiration, but soul creates devotion. When a man recognizes the soul of a woman, he is not seeing her with his eyes, but with his being. He feels the vibration behind her presence, the depth that lives beneath her appearance. Beauty can entertain him, but soul moves him. It shifts his direction, his choices, even his silence. In her, he recognizes not a possession, but a reflection, the reflection of his own yearning for meaning, for peace, for truth. This recognition is rare. It cannot be forced, nor can it be replaced. It is not a decision of attraction, but an awakening of alignment. Physical beauty is everywhere. It fades, it changes, it evolves. But the soul, that quiet, steady energy that carries compassion, wisdom, and grace, is timeless. A man who has lived long enough to see beyond surface learns that beauty can charm, but it cannot sustain him. The body can only hold attention, the soul can hold trust. He begins to look for what cannot be seen, the stillness in her eyes when she listens, the kindness in her silence when words fail, the calm in her energy when chaos surrounds. Her beauty may attract others, but her soul makes him stay. The recognition of soul happens not in moments of excitement, but in moments of peace. It is in the quiet conversations, in the pauses, in the way her presence feels like home rather than thrill. The world may see her as beautiful, but he feels something deeper. The way her laughter carries warmth, the way her sadness holds depth, the way her being feels familiar even before he truly knows her. When he recognizes her soul, he is not chasing emotion, he is remembering connection. It feels like finding a missing piece of silence that he didn't know he lost. Many men chase beauty because beauty is visible and the world celebrates what it can see. But the mature heart begins to crave something that cannot be measured by eyes. Beauty may impress but cannot calm. It may attract but it cannot heal. The soul, however, brings peace. It carries the essence of truth, the vibration of presence, the quiet assurance that love does not need performance. A man who connects with a woman's soul does not desire her as an image to display. He cherishes her as an energy that reminds him of who he is when he is most honest, most grounded, most real. The soul speaks in ways the body never can. It communicates through energy, through intuition, through the feeling of time dissolving in shared stillness. A man may sit beside a beautiful woman and feel restless, but sit beside a soulful woman and feel whole. Her energy tells him you don't have to strive here. Her gaze does not demand, it understands. Her presence does not consume, it balances. It is this recognition that makes him love not from desire but from awareness. He sees her not as something to complete him, but as something that reflects his completeness. To love a woman's soul means to see her through the layers of her humanness, her flaws, her moods, her changes, and still feel her essence untouched. It means recognizing the purity that lives behind her experiences, behind her fears, behind her defenses. He understands that her beauty may fade, her body may change, but her energy, that quiet grace, that silent wisdom, will remain. The man who loves from soul does not chase youth. He honors depth. He does not seek perfection. He seeks presence. When a man truly recognizes a woman's soul, the relationship becomes sacred. It is no longer a transaction of desire, but a meeting of awareness. Words lose their necessity because energy speaks more clearly. In her stillness, he feels mirrored. In her patience, he learns surrender. In her compassion, he remembers softness. Through her, he reconnects to the part of himself that the world often forces him to hide. The part that feels, that trusts, that believes in peace. Her soul becomes his teacher, not through instruction but through vibration. In this recognition, love becomes less about having and more about becoming. He does not want to own her or control her because he understands that souls cannot be possessed. They can only be honored. He learns that true connection does not demand proximity, it thrives through presence. Even in distance, her energy lingers, a quiet reminder of what is real. Beauty can fade when the eyes are closed, but soul remains visible even in silence. The recognition of soul also humbles him. It dismantles the illusion that love is conquest or achievement. He realizes that what he has met is not another person's body, but another consciousness, one that moves like water, one that heals like air. Her soul shows him that love is not emotion but awareness, not pleasure but peace. In her presence, his restlessness fades because he no longer needs to search. Her energy feels like the home his spirit has been walking toward. This kind of love does not burn, it glows. It does not demand words, it breathes in silence. It does not fluctuate with mood, it remains steady through change. It does not see through the eyes, it sees through the heart. When a man loves a woman's soul, beauty becomes a reflection, not a reason. What holds him is not what she looks like, but what he feels when her spirit enters the room. That quiet knowing, that wordless peace, that recognition that something sacred has been found beneath the surface of the ordinary. For him, this recognition is not a choice, it is a remembrance. The moment his soul meets hers, everything external loses urgency. Beauty no longer competes with depth because he has seen what the eyes cannot. He understands that the body changes, the mind evolves, but the soul remains. It is eternal, unshaken, unmasked. And once a man has looked into the depth of a woman's soul and recognized himself there, no beauty in the world can replace that truth. When a man begins to love deeply, the change within him does not announce itself. It does not arrive with words or promises. It unfolds quietly beneath the surface of his actions, within the rhythm of his breath, in the way his thoughts begin to rearrange themselves. He does not always know how to describe it, because it is not something he plans, it happens to him. Love moves through him like water shaping stone, carving new pathways in the spaces that once belonged to solitude and defense. From the outside, he may seem the same, but inside, his inner world begins to soften in ways that cannot be seen. The transformation begins in stillness. It is not a reaction to attraction, but a response to safety. When a man feels emotionally safe, something subtle shifts. The armor he has carried for years begins to loosen. The walls he built to protect himself from disappointment and judgment start to breathe. He finds himself thinking differently, feeling differently, seeing differently. The chaos that once drove him begins to quiet. What women often don't realize is that this process is not loud and it is rarely visible. It is the kind of transformation that takes place in silence, in solitude, in reflection. He may appear distant, but that distance is not detachment. It is adaptation. He is learning how to feel again without fear. Men are not always fluent in emotional expression. They are taught from a young age to hold things in, to be steady, to be unshaken. So when love begins to touch their depth, they do not rush to describe it. They absorb it. They study it. They let it move through their system until it feels safe to emerge. A man does not speak about his transformation, he lives it. His energy changes before his words do. The way he looks at her carries more patience, his tone softens without effort, his priorities begin to shift quietly. He starts thinking about her peace more than his pride. He starts caring about her safety more than his own comfort. This is not weakness, it is awakening. What women don't see is the inner labor that love requires of a man. It is not easy for him to lower the guard that life taught him to keep. The silent transformation is the process of learning to trust again, not just her, but himself. When he begins to love truly, he must confront his fears of inadequacy, his memories of rejection, his doubts about whether he can be enough. These battles happen quietly behind calm eyes and composed gestures. He may not speak of them, but he feels them deeply. Every act of openness costs him something, a piece of the protection he has carried for years. Yet for the woman whose soul feels safe, he surrenders it willingly. In this transformation, his definition of strength changes. Once he measured it by control, by independence, by emotional distance. Now, he begins to see that real strength is not in resistance, but in vulnerability. To remain calm when fear arises, to stay kind when ego wants to fight, to stay consistent when emotion fluctuates. These are the quiet proofs of his love. They are not dramatic, and they do not seek attention, but they are real. A woman may not notice them immediately, but they are the foundation of everything lasting. His love grows in the moments she never sees, in his late, night thoughts, in his silent prayers, in his decision to remain steady when distance or confusion tries to pull him away. The silent transformation also teaches him balance. A man begins to realize that love is not possession but alignment. He learns that protecting her peace does not mean controlling her freedom. He begins to understand that devotion is not about constant presence, but about consistent energy. His transformation deepens when he learns to love without needing to be needed, to give without losing himself. It is in these lessons that his masculinity evolves, from dominance to awareness, from control to calm, from reaction to reflection. And because this evolution happens within him, it often goes unnoticed by those who only look at the surface. When a man is quietly transforming through love, his world reorganizes itself. His ambitions may remain, but their motivation changes. He begins to build not just for achievement, but for stability. He begins to think not just about what he wants, but what he can sustain. Love awakens the protector in him, not in the sense of guarding her from the world, but in protecting the energy that exists between them. His actions may become gentler, his presence more intentional, his temper slower to rise, but he will rarely say, I am changing. He simply does. The reason this transformation is silent is because it happens beneath ego. Love requires humility, and humility is quiet. A man who has loved and lost knows the value of restraint. He does not rush to declare, he prefers to prove through presence. He does not speak of how he feels, he shows it through the stability of his actions. He listens more, he argues less, he thinks before he reacts. These are not small shifts, they are the signs that love has reached his inner architecture, not just his emotions. What women don't see is that when a man truly falls in love, he begins to rebuild his relationship with himself. The way he handles conflict, the way he responds to stress, the way he carries discipline, all begin to change because he now moves with awareness. He no longer acts to win, he acts to understand. He no longer reacts to protect pride, he responds to protect connection. This change cannot be captured in words because it lives in vibration, in energy, in the invisible adjustments of character. This is why his transformation often goes unnoticed. It does not ask for validation. It does not announce itself through gifts or speeches. It exists in how he becomes more centered, how he finds peace in giving rather than proving. When a man loves deeply, his silence is not emptiness, it is maturity. His stillness is not lack of emotion, it is reverence. He becomes the calm after years of noise, the grounded presence after seasons of restlessness. What women don't see is that every act of love, every moment of patience, every breath of restraint comes from an inner world that has been rearranged by the quiet force of devotion. This silent transformation is what turns desire into love and love into wisdom. It is what teaches him that connection is not about passion alone, but about purpose. It is what guides him from seeking to serving, from chasing to cherishing, from protecting his ego to protecting her heart. It does not happen overnight, and it is not meant to be seen. It happens in layers, in whispers, in stillness. The quiet evolution of a man learning that love is not the fire that burns brightly, but the warmth that stays when everything else cools.